I think if you are diagnosed with a binge eating disorder and you know that there is some trauma in your past, I would absolutely recommend that either you start with seeing someone who is trained to deal with that, or you do it together with a coach like me that can help you through it.
Hi, welcome to my channel. I am so excited to have Pim Jansson here today. Pim has been such an incredible, gentle voice. I've seen her work in group settings, and she has a sensitivity and a compassion that has been incredibly moving to see. Thank you. I'm so happy that you're here.
Oh, thank you so much. You're so nice to me.
It's just been a pleasure. I'm fangirling all over the place. So I definitely want to hear what your specialties are, what your work has been, and then I want to dive into your story. There's so much for us to talk about. I feel like you're an expert in so many things: carnivore, food addiction, behavior recovery. So tell us a little bit about what you're doing, what your skill set is, and how you got there.
That's a lot.
It's a
Okay.
lot. But we
Where do
only
I
have an
start?
hour. It's okay.
Yeah. Okay. So my passion is definitely when it comes to food addiction and um, on purpose changing your life, literally. So it has all to do with mindset coaching, changing the way that you think and rewiring the brain to get the behavior that you want to have without using willpower and the resistance that we usually use. So
Wow.
that's what I like doing.
Okay, you're only interested in changing lives. Just a very
Yeah.
small little topic of passion. Okay, this is phenomenal because Pim, I feel like I see it on the opposite end. I feel like I see my diet changed first, and then my mind was more free to change. But I
Yeah.
like how you're describing this. I'm sorry to interrupt. Go on. I love hearing about your passion.
I think what you're saying is absolutely true because when we're eating a crap diet, we are going to be inflamed and the brain's going to be inflamed. Everything's going to be harder to do, but not necessarily impossible to do. So that's why I'm working with low carb people because that was my story. I came from like having this revelation when I actually tried to do like an Atkins diet many, many years ago now. And I thought my cravings went away and everything was great until it wasn't anymore. And then after that, it was never that great again because there is an emotional component that drives me to eat behind that. And that's why I'm helping people who cannot get what you got going on a carnivore diet.
Yeah,
And
and I
so,
don't think that my story's not over with that though. You know what I mean? Like, I think that
yeah,
emotional eating is still like, I love what you said that when you were on Atkins, you initially something really changed,
yeah,
fundamental, until it didn't. And
yes.
okay,
I'm like, shall we really talk about this? But so I can't remember how long it actually went. I'm thinking like this is amazing. This is like the solution to my problems and I feel so great. And that was great. And it really boosted my confidence, thinking like, oh my God, I found the solution. All I had to do was just go through this initial withdrawal from the carbs and just eat this way. And I was like gorging because I was like, I'm not going to be hungry because that's going to make it worse. So I was just eating a lot of fat. I remember the first week I kind of had pain in my heart because I was like, oh my God, I'm eating all this fat, I'm going to die. I was really like so into it, thinking like, am I really doing the right thing? But once I was over that, it was like freedom. I did feel that freedom. But at the time I was working extra Wednesday evenings and every other Saturday in a bakery. And it it wasn't a problem in the beginning because I was so committed to doing it. But as I started feeling more confident in I can handle anything, I got this feeling of like hybris and I went in and when they had like broken stuff, we were allowed to eat it. So there was like these broken pralines and I had one. I was
oh
like, this is amazing. I don't have any cravings. I could eat one. I could enjoy. This is perfect. So the next Wednesday when I came back, there were several broken pralines. I was like, hooray, I'm going to eat them all. guess what happened? My brain was just like taking over. And obviously, oh yeah, we can do this. We know how to do this. We just have to go on the Atkins diet again, and then the problem's going to be solved. And it wasn't. So off I went on a binge. I don't even know how long. And then I just taught my brain that when I have been restricting for a while, the pleasure is going to be so much greater when I'm eating, that this just creates another pathway in the brain that will give you even more cravings. So now I'm triggered by being on a low carb diet over time. It's like, well, we've been going this long, we should be having something now. And then boom, here we go again. So that's why it didn't work long term for me.
And I love what you're saying, because you're like, oh, well, just Atkins harder more, because I do kind of hear this in the carnivore space, well, just eat some more meat and just eat carnivore harder, and keep going on this journey, when people are, sometimes the struggle for them is that they're not getting the results that they want. And sometimes the struggle is like what you're saying, that they keep on falling into some mistakes and keep on sliding on behavior. And so in your case, the further you kind of went and the harder Atkins you did, it actually set it up for the addiction again.
Yeah, because I made that mistake of thinking that was the solution when it wasn't. So if you go into it and you are going into a carnivore diet, let's say, with the mindset of this is how I want to eat, it's not the solution, but I want to do this for a different reason, I think that you could be fine doing it. But it's when you think that your diet should take care of your cravings and that the cravings shouldn't be there, that's when you are on a slippery slope, probably downhill.
You're missing part of the picture there. Okay, I see. So how did your journey go? Like, how did it go from there?
Terrible. So I've probably been keto for about 17 years, last time I counted, on and off, with the binges in between. And I never used to really go on what I would call a binge. I would just like eat a lot of sugar, because sugar was my thing. And I would do it on a daily basis, but never like having a fest of, I'm just gonna eat until I'm really feeling sick. So what started happening was that I tried to substitute with a lot of keto treats. I was, making keto brownies and all of the bullshit, which never really tasted that great anyway. So they didn't satisfy my cravings. And I just, the resentment is building up and the cravings are never fulfilled. I don't get rid of them because I don't crave keto brownies. I crave real sugar, and it's not the same thing. My brain knows that it's not the same thing. So when I would go off and like, okay, I'm gonna have a weekend off, I just need to let the pressure out and do that. I would go and shop, and rather than just getting the things that I would have eaten in the past, like some chocolate and maybe some licorice or whatever, I will be like, yeah, but what if maybe I need some chips? And I'm not a chips person. I don't like it much. I would probably eat it once every 2 or 3 years, unless it was someone put it right in front of me. I wouldn't go and buy it. And I would just buy like, oh, maybe I should buy a pizza as well. Like I would get all the crap just because this was my opportunity to eat it. So I would teach myself that every time I go off my keto diet, I'm just going to have a complete blowout. And I tried to just sort of stock up on eating enough of it so that I wouldn't miss it, which obviously doesn't work. And I think anyone who does that know that it doesn't work, but we will keep trying as if it's going to be better next time. And it never was. And sometimes I would get back on track within a week. Sometimes it took me like a couple of months because my brain was like, oh no, this is going to be too hard. I just can't deal with it. Yep. And we don't want to deal with it. And then time just ticks by and here we are. And eventually I get back on track, and it's a lot of hard work because there's a lot of willpower involved and it doesn't feel good. And then I'm thinking I'm never going to go off again because it's too much hard work to get on until I need that blowout again. And here we go. And it gets very boring. And I did that for many years, like probably more than 10.
This describes so many people's experience, and it does. This is what we're trying to use the same tricks, and our addict brain, I don't know how you describe that, is full of the lies of that this bring us back to this, thinking that it's discipline, thinking that it's willpower. And it's kind of interesting because those are half truths, right? Because there are some elements of discipline in it, making this lifelong change for yourself. And so this little half truth that we can hang on to. How do you think of willpower now? And then I do want to hear about how that turned around for you, and what were the key concepts that helped it turn around?
So when it comes to willpower, like willpower is something that you have a certain amount of it, and it kind of recharges when you're sleeping. So you wake up and you feel fine. Most people don't feel like I need to go on a binge first thing in the morning, even if it's on a weekend, because we're like recharged. But every single decision that you make throughout the day will kind of tap into that willpower, because you need to make decisions, and it's like a mental fatigue. So when you come to the end of the day, when most people actually overeat or eat crap in the evening as a way of trying to relax, and because they don't have that willpower anymore. So willpower is just a way of, like, you need to use willpower to try to force yourself to do something that you don't want to do. Because we don't want to stop it. And that's the problem. Like when I'm trying to help people, we have this cognitive dissonance that on one hand, we don't want to eat the crap, but on the other hand, we really want to eat the crap. Like, oh, but it tastes so good. We have all the reasons for why we should want to do it. So as long as you have that cognitive dissonance, it's like you're going to butt heads with yourself and you're not going to get anywhere. And we know which side is usually going to win out unless you have the willpower. So that's why I like to just work with your biology and learning how to feel uncomfortable while doing that. Because if you can feel uncomfortable and be okay with feeling uncomfortable, then there is no reason for you to eat anymore. Because that's what we want to get rid of. When we feel uncomfortable, we eat and we feel good again. Perfect. But if you don't need that, what's in the way?
Yeah. And so a lot of your work is helping people to accept feeling uncomfortable.
Yeah. And uncomfortable in this case is cravings for the food or urges to eat. But you can apply this to anything. Like I have recently applied it to procrastination in my own life. It's the same thing. And it's, I like to procrastinate. So I have had to work through that. And it's very uncomfortable for me to not procrastinate.
Absolutely. It feels like, okay, it reminds me of things like, okay, I'm afraid of snakes. Okay. And so I will, if I take the kids to the zoo or at a situation, they have these snake houses, I force myself to go in there on purpose and get as close to the snakes as I possibly can. And for some reason, I am drawn to do that. It sounds like something similar that you're doing with the feeling of discomfort.
Yeah, I wouldn't say that I'm drawn to do that. That's probably a
gotcha. Yes, I force myself to. I make myself do it. Yes.
Yeah. But I know that it works. So it just has to be a decision that I'm committed to feeling uncomfortable to get what I want. So whenever that feeling of uncomfortableness comes up, or whenever I have cravings, I'm like, okay, I need to stop now, and I need to allow myself to just feel what this feels like in my body and accept that it's going to be there, and accept that maybe it will never go away. But if I can accept that they're there, I do not have to eat. Now, they do go away. They're going to get less intense. You're going to learn over time to just do this on autopilot, so you don't have to think about it. You kind of do it automatically. You just feel a bit uncomfortable, but it doesn't require you to pay attention. So, but I don't like people focusing on that and expecting that to happen, because when we have that expectation, we automatically have resistance to feeling it now. We just want it to happen already, because that's what we do. We want to be at the goal yesterday. We don't want to have to go through this journey.
So you sort of make a mental agreement or an acceptance that this uncomfortable feeling could last a long time. And even though you know it doesn't, And so how is that for you now? Where did you kind of learn about this? I know you've got some certifications and some trainings and things like that. And so, and how does that land for you now with cravings with food?
Okay, so I learned this about maybe 6 years ago now. Or, well, I actually learned about it probably 7 years ago. So I was working with a coach, and it had nothing to do with my sugar addiction, because I, at the time, believed that this is just something that I'm going to have to live with. It's not something that I can do anything about. I'm just going to have to do my best for the rest of my life and suffer, which was kind of a bit depressing. But she had written a book, and she used to teach people to stop overeating, like just general overeating. And I was like, that's not my problem. I don't have a problem with overeating. I'm addicted to sugar. That's how I identified that my problem was a sugar addiction. But I read it and I was like, this is really interesting. And then for some reason, my brain didn't want to admit that this could be applied to sugar. It was like, well, I don't have an overeating problem.
Overeaters. This doesn't apply
Yeah.
to sugar. It's just good for those other people.
Exactly. That's
Yeah.
not my problem, but it's very interesting. But I mean, the seed was there and it just had to sit there for a while and grow. And the thing is that I think I was afraid of asking her, because I never asked her for the coaching. I just read the book and then I was like, maybe I should try this. Maybe it could work for me. And then I took a week off of work. And I decided I'm going to focus this week on me, and I'm just going to try this for a week. And it was amazing. It was so much better than I ever imagined that it could be. Yes, I had the time to just focus on myself. I had decided that this week, this is the work that I'm going to do. But also, I don't know if I'm lucky or unlucky, but when I sit and try to feel my cravings, what happens is that they go away almost immediately for me. They don't do that for all people.
Right.
So this was great in terms of getting the results that I wanted, to not eat the sugar. But it's not so great when you want to retrain your brain, because I didn't get the practice in as quickly as most people would do. So it took me a very long time to get there. And I have got some coaching on it later from other coaches. But at this time, I was not ready to get coached. I was like, I want to do this on my own. It's too embarrassing to get coached. I don't want to admit this, because I'm a coach myself and I should be able to sort this out. And I can't, even though I know that, I mean, I'm helping other people change their lives, but I can't change my own, the typical thing that all coaches have. So you probably know what I'm talking
I'm
about.
not the only coach that has that.
Oh, no.
No, coaches need coaches. And I had hired a coach and I told him, I'm like, well, just so you know, I'm not sure if I'm coachable. And he just started laughing and laughing. He said, okay, so let's see if we can deal with that. And, honestly, I think I had, because in that particular situation, I didn't turn out to be very coachable at all. And, you and I, as coaches, we figured that out. You can get a sense for that when someone's coachable and when they're not. And so,
oh, yeah.
Yeah. But that's not static. That doesn't mean that stays that way forever. Oh, I did want to hear the title and author of the book. I know people that are watching this will be curious about that. So,
I think it's called "If You're So Smart, Why Can't You Lose Weight?" But I can look it up.
Okay.
I can find
Yeah.
that. And the author is Brooke Castillo.
Okay.
But I can give you the title later.
Okay.
But it's really good.
No, it's so interesting because it was a pivotal moment for you. And I think that I mean, the conceptually, there's this concept of being uncomfortable and experiencing that discomfort, which is something that I think any good coach, addiction author, somebody that's working with people with food will realize that at some point. Fasting coach was what I kind of, and so you have to a willingness, right? There's a willingness that has to be there, but you also have to know what is it that you're willing to sit uncomfortably with.
Yes. So the willingness needs to be the willingness to feel uncomfortable emotions. It cannot be anything else. It can't be a willingness to just try to stay away from the food or anything. If you cannot sit and feel uncomfortable. If you're not willing to do that, then you are not going to be successful trying to deal with any type of emotional eating, because you need to learn how to process those emotions, and that's how you do it. If you want to retrain your brain to build new neural pathways, you need to overcome that, because otherwise you can't do it. Because the point here is, if you sit with a craving and you don't react to it, you're teaching your brain that it's not so bad. There is no panic, there is no life and death situation, and we can just not react to it. So you're teaching your brain to not react to the cravings anymore. And with time, it's going to be subconscious, it's going to be on autopilot. But in the beginning, you have to choose to do it. So that's like the two components. You're retraining the brain, but you need to do it through accepting your emotions.
This is amazing, Pim. Are you able to describe and give me some examples of what that might look like with people when they're on their recovery journey? What sitting with discomfort, could look like?
Yeah. So it's really simple. We always start with building awareness. So the awareness is like, first of all, noticing when you're getting triggered. It's just really good to know. It's not going to change anything on its own, but if you know when you're going to get triggered, you're automatically going to kind of switch on and be aware of what's happening, and then you're able to actually do the work. The second thing that we're doing, so this is part of the habit loop, but I just added the extra step, which is what you're thinking in this moment. So let's say the trigger is you walking into a supermarket and the thought is, I want some ice cream. That's the thought that is going to create those urges or those cravings for you. And we could attack this on the thought level, and I do that with my clients as well, but it's not like, if you're willing to feel any emotion, that's like the bulletproof plan. Changing your thoughts isn't bulletproof.
The power is with the emotional sensation,
Yeah.
with a feeling sensation. And I love what you're saying, because there is a mindset thought that's involved in that can be helpful. But it's like when you're dealing with it with an emotion, it's like a visceral kind of a truth that sits kind of deeper, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And I just like attacking it from so many angles, so that you're sorting it out on every level. So eventually you are definitely going to be bulletproof, because all of these can at some point fail. But if you have like 5 parachutes, one of them is likely to actually function. So the thoughts are also there to build awareness. Like what happened to me in the beginning was like, it just brought my awareness when I had those thoughts, because I knew I had a list of the thoughts that I would generally have when I was getting triggered. So they would just bring my awareness, and I was like, oh, okay, this is a craving. This is what's happening. Then you have that visceral reaction that you're talking about. So for me, tension in my jaw, and I do salivate like a drooling dog. And then I just feel it the whole way down to my belly. Like, this is how a craving feels for me. And that's what I want them to focus on. So when I say sit with a craving and be willing to feel uncomfortable, this is the uncomfortableness. And when I describe it to you, like, there's tension, salivation, you're like, how is that uncomfortable? It doesn't make any sense. So we also use, I like people to write it down in a journal, like, this is how it feels, because that somehow disconnects you emotionally, and it's easier to use your rational part of the brain in the process and just look at it like, okay, it's a physical reaction in my body, and it doesn't mean anything. It doesn't mean that I have to eat. It doesn't mean anything. And that can also help quite a lot, I would say. And then I like to close my eyes and just feel, and then focus on what is actually happening until either it goes away, or if you're someone who has it for a very long time, you can just set a timer to 90 seconds or 5 minutes if you want to sit that long. And then you're done. You don't have to do anything more. It doesn't matter if you go and eat after that, as long as you can accept this feeling in the moment, because that's what you want to train yourself to do. And right now, right when you're starting, it may or may not take away the cravings. And if it's going to make you go crazy to not eat, and you're just going to throw in a lot of willpower and think that this isn't working, you're just going to make it worse. So it's better that you just go and eat then. It's not a problem, because if you're sorting this out, if you only committed to doing this process, with time, your brain is going to be rewired, and you are not going to go and eat as a result anymore. You're not going to need to do that. So that's going to take care of itself. We don't need to focus on it right now because it's unnecessary, and it just brings a lot of pressure and stress to the whole process. And this is where almost everyone gets it wrong. It doesn't matter how many times I say it. They're like, yeah, but I ate. And I'm like, I don't care.
Well, what I hear that what I hear happening is it's a loop. What kind of loop did you call this?
The habit loop.
The habit loop. Okay. And so it's a loop and it takes some time. I'm hearing like 5 minutes. I'm not even hearing that it takes that long. Is there a range of time that this habit loop is around?
No. A habit loop is just like a series of events that always come together and happens like one after the other in the chain. And we interrupt that habit loop, maybe on the thought level, but definitely on before you take the action to eat whatever it is that you crave. So we kind of like rerouting it into another result. And the more you do that, the more those neurons are going to build up and the stronger that path is going to be. And when you're not using the old one as much anymore, those neurons are going to start getting pruned off and you're automatically just going to take the new route instead. Does that make sense? So it
doesn't even matter on the outcome. It just matters that you engage this process.
Yes.
And it's, I hear this is so specific. What I love about it is it has such specific steps that you're going through. Because I'll hear things or read things that say practice the pause, that sound kind of like this. This is a pause of some kind, but it's a pause with a really specific sequence that, may or may not involve some writing. I encourage that journaling piece as well. And I love what you said about the journaling piece, that the purpose of the journaling piece is the parachute, the mind parachute. That when you write that out, that engages the thought parachute. And the visceral parachute to me is the one that resonates the most and is probably going to have like the best effect, but you're hitting it from so many angles and taking this pause that even on the outcome of it, it's the fact that you took this pause to take this time and do this loop that is over time, applying it with repetition over time will change the brain feedback.
Yes, you got it.
Wow, I'm learning. Okay, now I need to put this into practice. Okay, awesome. So I definitely have a lot of just lady questions, health coach questions. So I'm going to kind of go through the questions that, I get a lot of. You had mentioned binging and a binge eating disorder. I hear from folks that are suffering with that a lot. And I hear that this loop pattern that you're doing, sequencing, it comes before the binge. Is that kind of, am I hearing that right?
Yes, every time. The problem can be sometimes just when we're talking about people with actual binge eating disorder who have been diagnosed, we know that that's protecting them. So they might not notice anything. And if that's the case, I'm not really working with those people because I'm not trained to do that. I'm not saying that this won't work, but I want to say that maybe if you know that you have some childhood trauma, am I cutting out?
Just look.
Am I back?
Yeah, it's mine. Yeah. It's on my end.
Are you sure? Because I thought it was on my end. That might be on your end.
Okay. So we're back. And I had started, actually, it cut out right when you said binge eating disorder, right? When you said if someone has a diagnosed and then
okay.
Yeah.
Right. I shall try to hop back. So let's say someone has been diagnosed with a binge eating disorder. That's not what I'm working with. I'm not trained to work with that. But having said that, what I'm doing should still work for a person like that. But I think if you are diagnosed with a binge eating disorder and you know that there is some trauma in your past, I would absolutely recommend that either you start with seeing someone who is trained to deal with that, or you do it together with a coach like me that can help you through it. But don't just skip that part, because trauma will always come back and it's something that you need to deal with, and you need to do that in a safe environment. So if there is some trauma, sometimes it can be really hard to just find those thoughts or even feeling those emotions. I have had clients where we literally have to scale it back, and we have to spend a couple of months just trying to feel because they cannot feel. So if that's you, maybe you want to see like a specialist that can help you through that. I forgot what the question was because I got distracted when we disconnected.
No, you're doing great. I was kind of dabbling into these areas of folks that have had, something kind of deeper diagnosis. Is this kind of an appropriate approach with them? And I hear you saying that this can be something that can help in a lot of different backgrounds, because I feel like it's upping emotional intelligence. And so when you're saying someone just can't even feel their emotions, that this is, obviously they're going to be in conjunction with some other helpers that are coming in, but that you have seen, people that can have some help that are improving. What is the typical road on the carnivores? How do the carnivores find you? And what are some of the bigger, I don't want to say mistakes, but complications that you see with people that are on that carnivore road?
I don't think there's anything like different from other diets necessarily. I think it's more the surprise element, because people go to carnivore and think that the carnivore diet should take care of their cravings, and then you're like, whoa, I still have cravings. What's going on? What's wrong with me? Why isn't this sorting it out for me? And it's because it's not a physiological issue, most likely, for those people. Like for me, it wasn't. It was emotional, and I didn't know that I had an emotional eating problem, because to me, emotional eating, at least at the time, was people getting really upset about something, or, whatever, and then they go home and eat. And I never did that. But I'm eating when I'm bored, or when I need to procrastinate, or that's when I go to the cupboard to check, like to distract myself. And boredom is an emotion, I'm afraid. So it might apply to you as well. And I think it's the surprise element that they want to resist it because it shouldn't be happening, because they are not eating carbs, so they should go away. So it's that almost like an entitlement to, this should have solved my problem, and then they are kind of angry about it because it didn't.
I love what you are saying right now. It is so applicable and succinct, because carnivore's kind of been popular for a while now, but there was some sort of fairy tale when it was first coming out that since it is the proper human diet, ancestrally correct, fully nourishing, since it does lower inflammation, feed our neurotransmitters in the correct way. There's so much like biochemistry that gets kind of corrected inside that you're right. We feel a right to no longer have emotional eating or issues with food. Oh, wow.
And what I want to add is that if you go into any carnivore Facebook group and someone says, oh, I have cravings, and it's like, just eat more fat or eat more protein, and it sets me off every time, because I'm like, that's not the problem. Yeah, it might help someone, maybe a little bit, but if there's any sort of emotional problem behind it, then it's not going to help a lot. And it just upsets me that people still believe that and tell others, and then you're just going to be like, okay, well, something's clearly wrong with me because it's not working. And then we just feel really shitty about ourselves. And I just want people to know that maybe you don't have to feel that shitty because the carnivore diet isn't working. Maybe it's not the solution to everything. Maybe if you lived in a tribe that ate carnivore and you were happy and didn't have all the pressure and the stress in your life, maybe it would work then. But we don't. And very few people do.
Thank you. And I think that, one of the advantages that we do have is that we tend to get kind of tribal in our carnivore lives, right? We can kind of find each other and find these little pockets of support and community. But I think that the truth telling that's happening right now is actually really powerful, and it's going to help a lot of people. And this is kind of what I'm figuring out as I do these interviews. It's like this magic wand theory that a carnivore fixes all is so incomplete. and so lacking in compassion, which I think that is actually your strong point. If I had a word to describe you, it would be compassion. I've seen you at work as well. And so, I've noticed that coming into that as well. I do want to find out what are your thoughts? You kind of mentioned community, and what are your thoughts on that, about how that plays into the emotional eating?
I think that, we are pack animals and we need some sort of community or connection with other human beings. I'm a super introvert, so I don't crave that as much myself, but it feels really good when I'm like on my coaching calls with my people and I feel really connected with them. And like when they have breakthroughs or when they realize something and they're like, oh yeah, you're right. When you just see like the penny drops, I feel so good. Like I need that in a way. And I'm completely happy to do it on Zoom because that also allows me to withdraw and disconnect as the introvert I am, which will make me feel better and recharge. So I think community can be different things for different people. But what I've paid most attention to is probably new people that come in to the program that I have, and they come to the weekly coaching calls and they're like, I just want to listen today, but I feel so good being here because I know that these people who are here, they understand me. They know exactly where I'm coming from. They have the same problem. And no one in my real life actually knows what it's like. They just think that, well, just don't buy it and you will be fine. So I think just knowing that you are not alone and actually have access to other people when you want to and if you want to can be really powerful. I think the downfall might be, again, that's a mindset issue. Like, yeah, I don't have time or I can't do it or whatever. So I think online communities are great, but if you can get a real life community that serves you in that purpose, go for it. I think that's always going to be better.
Interesting. And I don't know, like I have, my little social worlds locally, the other mom friends and other things, but not very many people are talking about the food addiction conversation, and not certainly nobody's acknowledging sugar as a drug, so there's certain conversations that my world is not even ready for, and they would just look at and think this lady is whack. They kind of know I'm on the edge of something, this person that only eats meat.
Yeah. They're like, she's crazy.
Yes.
And that's kind of funny because I used to work as a personal trainer for many, many years. When people ask me like, what do you do for a living? I'm like, I'm a personal trainer. And they're, oh, right, I really should be going to the gym more often. I'm like, I don't care. And now if I'm somewhere and there is like, oh, here we have some brownies. Do you want one? No, I don't eat sugar. And they're like, oh yeah, I shouldn't either. It's like people feel really uncomfortable when you're doing something that they wish that they could do and they just can't bring themselves to do. So of course they're not going to want to talk about it because it's not going to make them feel good to talk about it. It's just going to make them feel really shitty and pay attention to how they're not living into their own truth, but you are. So they're like, don't want to see it.
So true. That happened to me this morning. I was just at the library and ran into an old friend, and she all of a sudden confessed that she ate Skittles over the weekend. I was like, what in the world? Yeah, that doesn't, like, it's okay. You don't have to bring your confessions to me. Yeah. But I think that's interesting when you're talking about, forming your communities, that how much are the conversations in your groups? They're obviously focused on food addiction and people doing these right things, but does it kind of get into other territories as well?
Yeah, it tends to do, and the longer they've been in the group, the more we actually address that. So because it comes from somewhere, it's never just like, yeah, this is my only problem. It always comes from somewhere, and usually it's because of stress in some area of your life. So for some people, it might be just stress at work, or not having enough time, or not being like the mom they want to be with their kids, or whatever it is. So if something like that sits there and festers, you're always going to have this urge to want to eat, and you don't want to continue to just have to work through that. It's better to identify the areas that are actually causing the problem, just like another parachute. If we solve that problem, then we're going to have less of a problem that we have to deal with. Because what's happening, like when you're recovering, it's never going to be a straight line. Like you start doing this and then you're never going to fall off. That's not going to happen. I haven't seen it yet, and I don't think it's ever going to happen for anyone. You need to make your mistakes so that you can look at what happened and then do it differently the next time. When you think through what happened and how could I have done it differently, it's like you have a rehearsal in your head. So the next time you're in that situation, that's going to come back to you automatically, and you're going to be able to maybe choose differently. Or if you don't, then okay, what happened this time? Then you just do it again. It's not a problem. It's just a learning curve and something that we have to go through. So I think like what happens also over time, sometimes you might have been on the right path for, let's say, 6 months. And then all of a sudden, you have this massive craving from out of the blue. You don't know what happened, and you're super surprised, and you're just like, oh, I have to give in to it. And you forget everything about what you did. And it's just the way that your brain will try to get you back into what you were doing, because there might have been a stressor or whatever. And that will keep happening. So if, let's say, what was the first thing that I mentioned? I feel like I'm all over the place now.
No, we're just talking about mistakes. It's kind of the conversation. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's never going to be like something that is going to be like, I can't say I haven't had such a craving in maybe a year and a half, but I'm not convinced that it's not going to happen again.
Right.
I'm sure that it could happen.
Mm-hmm.
And I just have to expect it to happen and then be willing to just do the way. Well, I say that, but that's not actually entirely true, because I remember a few months ago, I started doing something, and I think maybe I had some die-off of some bacteria or fungus or something that probably wants sugar.
Yep.
And all of a sudden, I had massive cravings every day, and it didn't lead me to go and eat, but I got a bit resistant and fucked off with it, because my brain was like, I have already done this work. Why the F is this happening now? And I didn't connect the two. So I spent a couple of days just like, nope, I'm going to ignore it. Not using willpower, but just ignoring it, like distracting myself from it, which isn't what I recommend that anyone does. So it wouldn't go away. But when I was like, okay, well, I have to deal with this, and I just got back into my practice, and it got better. Whether it got better because I did it, or whether it got better because I was finished with the die-off or whatever, I don't know. But it kind of went away eventually. So I just want to say, like, it will happen at some point, probably. And if it doesn't, lucky you, I will be surprised, but I envy you.
Oh, if you never have a craving again, or a moment, or look at something. Yeah, I was putting away stuff over the birthday party weekend, and I was looking at it thinking of taking a lick, and it's like, what the heck am I, and just tossed it in the trash. And so I didn't really think much of it after that, because it went in the trash. But I love what you're saying about that you're practicing these skills in other areas of your life now. And so
that's what we were talking about.
Yeah, well, no, because I for me, like when I going carnivore, choosing this kind of extreme boundary that I put around myself, or to me, it's just normal life. I don't even think about it anymore.
Yeah.
But when I first started, it was a big boundary that I was forming, and it helped me to form boundaries in lots of other areas of my life. And so I think that, when you're kind of going through these processes, if you're staying open to healing and growing in other things that are troubling you, then it keeps your skill set alive.
Yeah. I mean, I love what you're saying about boundaries. And that's a common pitfall. As you know, a lot of people want to be carnivores, and then they like, well, a low carb treat isn't so bad, or I just had like a bite of a banana, or I had some flavored fizzy water, or whatever it is. Like, they start playing with that because physiologically it's not going to do anything. So it's like they're stretching the boundaries, and they try to include things that they don't really want to have, but they're not bad. So we kind of justify them. And when that happens, that's when things usually start snowballing. So what I recommend, I mean, if you're a planner, you can plan as much as you like, but I just have a mental list of the foods that I eat on a regular basis. I don't restrict. I don't do anything. It's like, if I'm hungry, I'm going to eat, whatever, it doesn't matter. But these are the foods that I'm sticking to. And then it doesn't matter. And I don't touch any other foods without planning for it. So I can still have other foods. On my birthday, we went out and I said, I'm going to have whatever I want off the menu. I looked at the dessert list and I was like, nope, 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 don't want it. And I'm a sugar addict, mind you. So I didn't have any sugar, but I had a burger and I ate the burger bun. No big deal. It was just a meal. Like it was something that I did. I felt great the next day. I didn't have any headache. I didn't have any dip in my energy. Nothing happened. I didn't have an upset stomach and nothing. But I don't, I'm quite, I'm not that sensitive to foods, but if I had like, let's say an autoimmune disease, maybe I wouldn't have had the burger bun. Like maybe I would have just some veggies. So my focus is always on how can I feel as good as possible? Because I want to age and feel really good and be mobile and functional for the rest of my life. I would like to just die in my sleep at some point without having to go through the being put in a home and being taken care of. I want to be able to wipe my own ass. I don't want someone else to do that for me. So that's kind of a filter that I put on everything. It's like, is me having a burger on my birthday once a year, or maybe twice if I'm doing it with my partner as well, is that going to cause a problem for me? No, it's not. And it's not causing a problem tomorrow. And if it did, then I would be like, okay, am I prepared to pay that price? If the answer is yes, I'm going to have the burger. If the answer is no, then I won't. So I'm kind of still open to eating other things. So I'm not super strict, but it doesn't happen very often. Like if it happens a couple of times per year, who cares? It's not going to do anything.
Yeah. And I think where I'm at with it too is, I accept anybody's protocols, anybody's programs, anybody's choices that, make them feel their best. I love that goal about that. And so we do have, quite a few of us in the meat world that's our decision too. We feel our best on only meat. So we're not, oh God, goodness, what did we do? We did a big meetup. It was at one of these Brazilian steakhouses. And it was so funny because they brought all the bread bowls out there and they just sat like, oh, we should have told them like that's because stuff is going to end up all in the trash. And so I love what you're saying. I love that you're open just to, helping so many people. And as long as there's room for those of us that feel that we're abstainers and that's that we want, and that's the life that we want, and that's the way that we feel the best, then I feel like there's room for everybody. Like, hey, as long as there's a spot for anybody in this, like, I'm good.
Yeah. And on the topic of abstainers, that's another big thing. Is like, I thought I was very black and white in my thinking, and I wasn't prepared to go to the place where I thought I would never be able to have sugar again, because that would just put me off and not make me do anything. So that's why I'm teaching all my clients how to incorporate other foods if they want to. And we always, unless there is a very specific reason for why they don't or can't do it, I want them to do an exception challenge to teach their brains that they can handle it if they're eating off plan, and they can easily go back to what they were doing before. And I think this is one of the biggest changes that happen, is that they're like, first of all, actually, I didn't like it as much as I thought I would. So they usually don't even eat as much as they thought that they were going to do.
It doesn't even taste good. That's what
exactly.
That's been my thing. Like that wasn't worth it. That didn't even taste good.
And the second thing is that they don't get more cravings after doing it. There's no drama. There is no binge happening after that. It's all just back to normal. And doing it and thinking it are two different things. So I think they need to have this experience. So I want people to do that as well. And some people are really scared of it because they think that I'm going to end up on a binge if I'm doing that. But if you want to be an abstainer because that is what makes you feel best, go for it. Yes. If you want to be an abstainer because you're scared that you won't be able to handle it, don't go for it.
Got you.
Then learn how to do that and then choose to be an abstainer just because you want to.
Oh, I love that. Then you stay in the locus of control stays in you.
Yeah.
So much about life is like, what can I control? What can't I control?
Yes.
So I like the intention that you're putting behind that. That is super meaningful. You mentioned you were a trainer. How does movement and exercise fit into this recovery process at all? How does that work?
I don't do any of that stuff anymore. I just let people do whatever they want to do. Okay. Unless I have a one-to-one client that wants to incorporate some of that, then we can talk about that. But that's not how I market my services. Like, I'm not in the capacity of
It
a
doesn't,
personal trainer, but I will still help them with, nutritional advice or exercise advice if they want it. But that's usually not what we spend most of our time doing.
not a crucial component of the emotional eating. You don't have to join CrossFit to be part of this. No.
The thing is that I don't know. For me, in the past, when I've been exercising a lot, that drives my hunger a lot, and that
Yes.
also drives my cravings a lot. So if you're not an exerciser already, don't start exercising when you're trying to do this protocol, because then you have two new things to deal with at the same time. Just keep doing what you're doing and start practicing allowing your cravings. If you're already exercising, just keep doing it. That's not a problem. So I just don't want people to change a lot of things. And sometimes people come to me, I was like, yeah, I want to quit the sugar, and I want to quit the coffee, and I want to quit this, and I want to quit that. I'm like, okay, let's focus on one thing. And that's just feeling. And you start feeling when you have cravings for food, because if you're going to feel when you have cravings for all those things, you're going to be overwhelmed. It's going to take too much time. You're going to have cravings for one of those things, probably at, throughout the day, 50 billion times. It's going to be too much. Like, focus in, decide what you want to focus on. If you want to do it with coffee, you do it with coffee, but just do that one thing. It doesn't matter which one you choose, because you will still practice that skill, and that skill is transferable to the other cravings.
So true. You learn the process. I know each individual is going to be different, and there's going to be different timelines. Are there certain timelines that you see as milestones for a lot of people to have certain levels of things feeling differently for them?
So when I get a client who's like, they're watching all the videos and they're doing everything that I tell them to do, they actually use the journal and they look at it, they bring that to the sessions, 2-3 weeks, they got it under control. It's that quick. But having said that, you're not finished after 2-3 weeks, because it's not yet a habit. You still need to keep focusing on it and get used to who you are becoming, because you are becoming a different person. And sometimes that will bring up some other shit. It will be like, oh my God, now when I'm this person, then they want to put a lot of pressure on themselves in other areas of their lives, or they think other people are going to think things about me, like I'm pretentious, or I think that I'm better than everyone else, and then they want to hide that, and that can easily lead to, oh yeah, I'll just have the one cookie so that they didn't think this and that about me. So that it brings up a lot of other stuff that you usually have to work through to actually be comfortable with being the new person that you're becoming. So the journey doesn't end after 2-3 weeks just because you got the eating behavior under control and you know how to do it and it feels easy to do it. It's just like, that's how quick it can be for some people. Other people, I have some, especially one-to-one clients that I'm working with, because I'm only working with people for 6 months, because I want to be sure that we actually get there. So for some people, that's plenty of time and we have time to do a lot of other things. But for some people, they need all that time. And they're going to fall off and they're going to go on binges, maybe week-long ones within those 6 months. And it's just a rougher journey, if you want to call it that. I think maybe in some way they are luckier because they're working with me when they are actually going on that binge, and they have the opportunity to really work through that and work through it on a deeper level so that they learn how to do that long term. What worries me the most is when I have those people that do it in 2-3 weeks and then they don't fall off at all. And I'm thinking, uh-oh, what's going to happen when they fall off when we're not working together? Are they going to be the kind of, oh my God, this shouldn't be happening? And then just kind of snowball from there. So I try to prep them for that when I have such clients, but I'm actually more worried about those. So if you have an easy journey, it doesn't mean that it's going to be better for you necessarily. I think you need to go through a little bit of that hardship and the struggle to become bulletproof.
Oh, this is so powerful. We just wrapped up with a client today, and she said, am I okay? Like, did I learn my lessons? And we were coaching her together on a team coaching. We kind of said, the reason that we have a lot of confidence in your journey is because of the mistakes that have happened.
Yes.
Because she had been through that process, had made some mistakes, had gone through the recovery of that process, had been through it, again. And then of course we're always available if she, wants to reach out in the future or whatever, but it was just kind of I really identify with what you're saying, that once you've seen people stumble, fall, make mistakes, go through that journey to get back, that it gives a lot more confidence in what they're doing. So
Yeah.
Gives me chills.
Me too.
Oh no,
I got chills when you talked about her. I was like, yes, that's so good.
Yeah, that was it. And I didn't actually realize that on purpose, but when I realized, yes, you're ready, and this is how I know you're ready, and this is why you're ready, is because of that long, hard road of trusting the process, practicing the skills, that is the road that typically is going to have like the long-term change and effect that we want, because they've been with us for longer, more ingrained. And this is all about the patterns in our brains, really, that ingrained. So beautiful.
100%.
Okay, so what are you up to? What projects are you doing? What are you most excited about? Where can people find you and reach out?
Not long ago, I actually released a free course. So maybe if you want to learn how to actually sit with your cravings, I'm teaching that. And I used to do challenges, and I might do it again, but I really boiled it down to just, not just the practice, but almost just the practice, and a little bit of a future focus and the reason for why you want to do it. So if you want to learn that, I can share that link. So that's free. I also have a Facebook group. If you are interested in the community, you can join that one. We do Zoom hangouts on the weekends where we just hang out. It's not specifically for you to be coached or bringing that up, but if you have questions for me, you can absolutely come there and you can just ask me. What we usually do is just talk about butter and cats and dogs. I don't know, there's some crazy shit going on in there that I don't want to share on YouTube necessarily, and they're not recorded. So it's just like a hangout. It's for the community, for you to just be around other like-minded people that have some sort of eating issue. Not everyone does, but everyone in there is probably low carb, and most of them are carnivores as well. So that's a cool place to hang out. It's kind of my guilty pleasure doing that on the weekends. We're always having so much fun.
What's the title of the Facebook group?
That's a very good question. I changed it way back and I cannot remember it. So it's Food Freedom for High Achieving Keto Carnivores. Awesome. That's what it is. You ask hard questions here. I'm like, what?
I'm so sorry.
And then obviously my YouTube channel, I release a new episode every Sunday if you're in the US, or Monday morning if you are in New Zealand like me, where I'm talking about different things related to food addiction or overeating, or sometimes I have guests on, and I want to talk about a guest that I have, an upcoming guest. Unfortunately, we were supposed to do this a week ago, but he was ill, and I just want to share this if it's okay, because what I'm proposing is that addiction is just like a habit that your brain has gotten so used to that it needs it. It's not something that you have to live with for the rest of your life. We are not addicts in recovery. You can actually get over your addiction and not be addicted anymore. I do not think that it's a lifelong disease, if you like, that you have to live with. And then someone said to me, I think it was Claire from Beyond the Scale, she said to me, yeah, but if someone was an alcoholic, you wouldn't say that they could go and have one drink. And I'm like, yes, they can. And she was like, really? I was like, yeah. So I found this guy, and he is a counselor. He's an hardcore drug addict, drugs, alcohol, all the things that you can imagine. And he's now helping other people with addictions, and mostly drug addictions, I think. And he's like, I don't subscribe to the 12 steps. I do not practice abstinent recovery, and I can go out and have a beer with my friends. And I'm like, yes, I need to have him on. So I'm so excited to talk to him about this. And also the major reason I wanted to talk to him was actually about the trauma aspect, because that's not my strong side, and I'm super interested in that. But just know that we don't have to be afraid of it. We can retrain the brain permanently. We don't have to have that compulsion to feel like we're going to go off track just because we have one drink or we have an ice cream or whatever it is, when there is intention and awareness in there. It's entirely possible to do that, and just do it for whatever reason you have. And it doesn't always have to be a health reason. Like sometimes we just want to do it for fun. And I'm not proposing that we should eat for fun or for entertainment on a daily basis. But if you want to do that once a year,
Right.
once a month even, and you don't feel bad for doing it, why not?
Reminding that. Wow, amazing. Well, I appreciate your time today. This has just been incredible. I appreciate just who you are and how you treat people. And you are brave because you're going into a very vulnerable spot in people's lives, and it was something that will easily make them cry. And you are such a soft, compassionate, truthful voice in that world. And so it's been a pleasure. Thank you for just sharing your knowledge with me. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. I have loved being here, and thank you for inviting me.
Absolutely.